Tomorrow, the first crack. Police in Albany, New York, refused to arrest Occupy protesters, ignoring pressure from New York State Governor Cuomo and the city's mayor. Good evening from New York. This is Monday, October 24th, 379 days until the 2012 presidential election. A weekend of arrests saw Occupy protesters jailed for trespass and other mostly minor offenses around the country, with one major exception: New York's state capital of Albany. There, city and state police chose not to arrest hundreds of protesters camping in a park near the state capitol building and city hall. Very different case in Dallas today, where protesters were hauled off to jail for blocking a bank entrance. The fifth story on the countdown: Occupy protesters starting in Zuccotti Park have repeatedly expressed their support for the police, often chanting, "We're fighting for your pensions too," with many protesters adding that street cops themselves have often expressed support for the movement. In Albany on Saturday morning, no verbal support from police, no arrests either. A local paper, the Times-Union, is reporting that state police were prepared to make mass arrests of protesters for trespassing in a city-owned park, until city police refused to make arrests for trespassing, reportedly in part because they feared a backlash from protesters in Albany and elsewhere. This despite further reports of pressure from New York Governor Andrew Cuomo and Albany Mayor Gerald Jennings to make those arrests. We'll sort this out, hopefully, in a few moments with David Soares, the Albany County District Attorney. In Philadelphia, at least 15 protesters arrested Sunday when they refused to move from the camp in front of the police administration building. In Cincinnati, 11 protesters arrested yesterday and charged with criminal trespass for refusing to leave the city's famed Fountain Square. In Cleveland, another 10 arrests when protesters linked arms in Public Square. City officials said they needed the square cleared for the annual Winterfest. It's October 24th. In Oakland, protesters marched Saturday in defiance of an undated city eviction notice. And in Sydney, Australia, at least 40 more arrested before dawn Sunday after they blocked a plaza in the city's central business district. Let's start in Albany, New York tonight, and the story of the arrest that did not happen Saturday morning. I'm joined by Albany County District Attorney David Soares. Thanks for your time tonight, sir.
Thank you for having me, Keith.
You reportedly spoke with police officials over the weekend over your concerns regarding prosecutions of peaceful protesters. Is that report correct? And if so, what were your concerns?
That report is correct, and quite frankly, the concern was law enforcement locally sparking greater interest and sparking, quite frankly, fuse that we wouldn't be able to control. And therefore, we decided to apply a different strategy, which was to engage the protesters, maintain open lines of communication, and hope for the best. And thus far, the protests have been taking place in Albany. Things have been fine, and the relationship couldn't be better.
Is that that same report from the Albany paper of pressure to make arrests from the mayor's office and the governor's office, is that report correct to your knowledge?
There's words that to that effect as far as pressure being put on local law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
However, I can say from the perspective of the district attorney's office, I received no calls and there were no pressures being put on me. However, I do understand that there had been some pressure. From where that pressure was coming from, I can't speak to that.
And but the police held off for tactical reasons. Is that fair to say? They had a separate set of reasons beyond yours?
Well, I had reached out to our local chief, and of course the local police department here, the Albany Police Department, has been they've been working very aggressively at improving their relationships with the community, and they have. And they were concerned that this directive would, of course, compromised all the efforts that they have been making in that regard. And during the course of that conversation, I did inform them that we would decline to prosecute any of the cases that would be any of the arrests based upon the fact that unless there were injuries to police officers or damages to property, then the people should be allowed to protest and exercise their First Amendment right.
On the whole, Mr. Soares, was this an instance of common sense overcoming pressure, or is that too simplistic?
Well, that may be too simplistic, but, you know, in Albany, New York, we're accustomed to dealing with protests and protesters all the time. We also have several universities, colleges nearby, and our concern was if we, in fact, you know, began to arrest people and the media was capturing images of grandparents or children being hauled off to jail, that might spark more people onto the streets, and of course, that hasn't happened. The protesters have been fine. We've been maintaining great dialogue with the organizers, and for the most part, a lot of credit should go to the organizers for maintaining a wonderful protest. And there's been no violence, there's been no reports of any kind of mishap, and we're fine with it.
Is there? Do you look at afar from your vantage point at other cities and other places where this process has not played out this smoothly, and it seems that perhaps that kind of judgment has not been applied, and people have gone solely by the book rather than understanding what the book is for?
Absolutely, and I think that their law enforcement in those communities understand too the risks associated with engaging protesters and engaging in this process. And I think that behind the scenes, law enforcement would tell you that this would not be the approach that they would take if given the choice. And here in Albany, there was discussions prior to the event, and I believe that we've made the correct choice, and we're receiving the benefits of that, so to speak.
The Albany County District Attorney David Soares, congratulations on making news for not making news, and thanks for some of your time today.
Thank you, sir.